Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Larilyn with House of a Cotique Design. For those of you that are new, thanks for watching and tuning in. And for my loyal subscribers, thank you, ultimate thank you for hanging in there with me. I've gotten up to the 500 subscriber mark, guys. I'm so grateful. Thank you guys for watching, sharing, commenting, and liking the videos. So what I'm working on today, it's a little experimental. I'm going to make a flounce from scratch without a pattern. So typically for a flounce, it's really just a circle. So what I'm going to share with you first is the fabric that I've chosen. This is going to be for a frilly summer dress for someone else. I've taken the measurements here of the neckline. So basically the opening around the neck is where the flounce is going to be. And this is actually a V-shape neckline. So this is the fabric. It's a chiffon fabric. A chiffon fabric, it kind of feels almost like a rayon, actually. It feels like a rayon. I purchased this earlier this spring when I was out of the country on a trip, vacation trip, and it was so pretty. And, you know, I thought she'd really like this at this point, and sure enough, she loved it. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you the circumference formula. So those of you, take your minds back to middle school math, right? So we've got the circumference formula here of a circle. So I have the distance around my neckline at 40 inches, and the circumference is basically 2 times pi, which is 3.14 times the radius. Okay, and we know that the diameter of the circle is half the length across the circle. The radius is just half of that diameter. So any point from the center of your circle to the outside of the circle is your diameter. Half of that is the radius. So keep that in mind. So if I have 40 as my distance around the neckline, I'm going to replace that 40, which is basically the circumference, that distance. Okay, so plugging in the numbers, basically we have 40, my circumference, is equal to 2 times pi, that value which is 3.14, times the radius. And to solve for my radius, of course, I am multiplying. So to undo multiplication, what do? You have to divide. So we're going to take 40 divided by the 6.28, which is your 3.14 times 2, which is 6.28. We're going to undo this multiplication by dividing. So I want to get r by itself, my radius. So 40, my circumference around my neckline, divided by 6.28. If I cross that out, it really leaves me the radius. So that answer is about 6.37. So I want to use my ruler or measuring tape, which is in inches and not decimals. So it's closest to 3/8 of an inch. So 6 3/8 of an inch, okay, would be my radius. So if I pick this as the center point of, let's say, the circle that I'm making, and if I go to any point away from here and measure out 6.38, I'm going to mark here. It's kind of pre-marked so you can kind of see it. I don't want to mark too much because I don't want this to damage the fabric. I've got another mark out here, if you can kind of see that, out there. And I've got a final mark out here at 6.38. And I did another mark out here at 6.38. So now what I want to do is I want to connect all of those points, right? So essentially what I'm forming is a circle. And there's a much more accurate way, you know, that you could do this with your protractor. I'm just kind of freehanding it. Can't be that hard to draw a circle, right? Okay. And then I'm going to go out here. Okay. So once that's done, essentially, with my diameter, that's how wide I want it all the way around. Okay. Okay. So now what I've done is, once I've determined how much length I needed, I'm figuring I need to determine how wide I want each piece to be. So I've gone to the center and I've measured about my 2 inches out here, and I've drawn 2 inches all around from here. At this point, I went 2 inches out all the way around, right? And then from here, I'm gonna take my 2-inch mark and I'm gonna do the same thing. So I've marked 2 inches here. I'm gonna go back and I've got about 2 inches here. So I'm gonna take that mark I'm gonna bring that around, okay? And then I'm gonna do a couple more, which takes me back to about the original line that I started with. So I'm gonna say that's my end point right there. So again, guys, this is like total experimentation right here of what I'm working with. So I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna cut right here, make a little hole, right? And then I'm gonna go out around my circle to start cutting this out, okay? So if I turn this around so you can kind of see, and this is all experimentation, guys. I'm just trying to determine, and there's probably another easier way of doing this, but basically I'm just gonna cut all the way around for you to see what that looks like. And here is the finished flounce. It's a little bit narrower than what I initially thought, it would be. So when you're doing this, take into account, your seam allowance when you're sewing it to the actual neckline, and when you're actually doing the clean finish, hemming it, probably a minimum of 3 inches out as opposed to 2 inches out with this particular method. But essentially, you can see the circle. So definitely the circumference formula should work when going backwards and determining the actual length that you need to go around the neckline, and then working your way back to figure out the radius. Should give you a rough estimate of how much you need. Again, this was actually experimentation. So again, if you guys know of a more fail-proof way to determine, once you've measured around the neckline, for the best, fit, including seam allowance, let me know. And voila, there it is on the neckline. Because this is a V-shaped front, I probably would start my pinning of the end of the flounce at the V-neck to overlap, and then work my way towards the back. But it's really preference, and whichever, gives the cleanest finish. But again, I'm going to go ahead and hem it and probably finish the neckline off with some bias binding. So hopefully this was helpful. I will do a part 2 of showing a different method of how I make the flounce, because I do not want to go with the 2 inch. I'm going to probably double the width so that it's closer to the shoulder line. So if this video was helpful, hit that like button, bell notification to get my videos. Consider sharing the video, helps this small channel to grow. Liking, and of course subscribing, so that you'll get all of my tutorials, demos, and just what I'm working on behind the scenes here at House of Akoti Design. So I hope this client loves her frilly summer dress, and with a little added flounce detail to it. And if I had not mentioned earlier in the video, I will share the final details of the dress once it's completed.